Have you ever wondered how the pipelines in Power Platform actually work? What's behind the scenes and how you can run it as a pro developer? Prabhat is here to tell us all about it in this episode of Low Code Revolution. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Low Code Revolution. Today, we are going to talk about pipelines again, together with Prabhat. Hi, Prabhat. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here, and today I'll be talking about the session 2 of pipelines, and where I am going to cover architecture part, the pipelines entity and table metadata, and live demo with the Pack CLI.
Yeah, really excited about it because there are a bunch of things that we should know about pipelines, right? We had the first episode where we were talking about an overview, and now we're going into the nitty gritty details, right? So, what's behind that pipelines host that we already talked about? So, the whole model driven app with all the entities behind there, and also how we can use the CLI, right?
Absolutely. And I'm going to share everything that we have today.
Great.
All right. So let me get started here. Uh, so as you already know about the pipeline's various capability, but I will summarize those things here again. So we have three personas: admins, citizen developers, and pro devs. So using pipelines, we make ALM approachable for everyone. Admins, they can set up pipelines under 2 minutes, and they get full governance capabilities and visibility of all the ALM operations in their environments. And then we have citizen developers or citizen makers. They can literally deploy with one click. So we call it one-click deployment. And this essentially democratizes ALM for citizen makers. And then we have Prodep, who deals with code automation, so they can use pipelines via CLI, Pack CLI, and automate various tasks. So that facilitates fusion development and full-fledged automation of ALM capabilities.
Yeah, I think this is also really the really cool part about the whole pipelines, because normally you'd have Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions, and those are the tools that pro devs are comfortable with, but the admins and the citizen devs are not at all comfortable with, or less comfortable with. So I think that's like the game changer here.
Absolutely. And it connects the dot across three different personas that we have. So let me take you to the full detail of architecture part here. So let's start with the topology of pipelines. And this is like 100,000 feet or 10,000 feet overview of pipelines architecture. And then we will deep dive and share more detail. So on the left side, you see, hey, I have bunch of development environment A, B, C. That those are the places where makers are doing the development, and then they produce artifacts. They are generally solution. We take solution as a deployment unit for the pipelines, because solutions can contain uh, power apps, whether it's model or canvas, connections, environment variables, as well as power automate flows and PVA, and even power page in future. So as long as anything which is part of the solution, that can be deployed through the pipelines. So essentially solutions become our transport bundle in this case. And then we have pipelines. We create, hey, there is integration stage where all the artifacts, they come together to make sure that everything is fine, and then we push them to QA, where normal user acceptance testing and additional testings can happen. And once satisfied with all the result, those things gets to the pushed to the production. So this is just a sample three-stage pipeline here, but this is what scheme of things looks like. Now let's transition to the another view of architecture, which talks about how these things are implemented. And again, this is very high level view, just to conceptually explain how these things looks like. So often you will hear that, hey, pipelines can deploy within a geography. There is a technical region we do, so that services are not crossing the boundaries across different geos. And then we have tenant boundary. Again, pipelines are specific to a tenant. There can be multiple, as you see here. There are three divisions: sales, finance, operations. They can have their own pipeline host where they manage deployment ALM. So that provides department or BU level isolation. And then each of those divisions can have multiple developer environment. They can have multiple test, UAT, and production. And so as you will see, these things per division gets configured in a host, and then there is a backend service, we call it pipeline deployment orchestrator. All these requests goes to that service, which is generally at a geo scope level, but it operates within the boundary of tenant. So all these requests for the deployment validation is carried out by this service. These are the hosts within a division, and there are various environment. There could be multiple hosts in a large organization or tenant, depending on their division configuration. Or if they want, they can share as well in one pipeline configuration.
Yeah, and what would be the decision that you need to make for a new pipelines host, for instance? So when should you consider a new pipelines host?
So generally, it's advisable that we have just one set of things. But what happens, like they're like large customers, like many thousands users and hundreds of maker, and they operate within their business units boundaries. They have their own processes, and sometimes merger, acquisition, various things happens there just to facilitate those things. These type of configurations are there, but they can create sometime confusion as well. So being just careful when I should have multiple, when I should have single. Often it's single which is advisable, because less things to manage, better it is.
Okay.
So now let me take you to the next slide, which talks about the table metadata. So as you have noticed, there are admins, and then there are makers who consume the pipeline definition. So pipeline admin, they do all the configuration using a model app. We call it pipeline configuration app. And then in the Power Apps portal, you see all the deployment experiences in the Maker portal. So to capture those information, there are two separate set of table configuration where these metadata of pipeline or configurations are stored. So one is deployment pipeline here. That's the main table you will see. Within that pipeline, we can associate environments, developer environment, and then we can create states. There could be integration, test, and prod, and then those states are also associated with their environment here. One thing that you will notice here, developer environment is associated with one host, although it can be part of multiple pipeline. Here, test and production, they can be part of multiple stages as well. So technically it's possible, but keeping these pipelines simple, not having too much of sharing, avoids confusion. But this is what that configuration looks like. So I have a pipeline, I have my developer environment, and then I have a stage, and those stages are linked with their test and prod part. And these things are configured by pipeline administrator. So we have a role as well, and I'll talk about those things in the later demos, how those things are configured and what are the best practices. And now let's switch gear towards deploying the pipeline, deploying the payload using pipeline. So as requests are made to deploy by the maker, so there is a table where these requests are captured. We call it deployment stage run. And then there are two additional detail which are associated and captured in that table: the stage run status, which talks about validate and deploy. And during demo, live demo, I will share some of these things, how they make, how they are visible, what they tell exactly what's going on behind the scene. And then we have artifacts. Anytime we deploy, we also export and keep copy of those artifacts stored for reuse or future reference to the pipeline administrator or the makers. So we talked about two roles here: administrator and pipeline maker or user. One is administrative configuration, and one, when runs, those details are captured on the right side. All right. So we'll talk about next how to use PackCLI. But in general, we recommend here that use pipeline configuration app for all the administrative tasks. Use the maker portal for deploying. There is a UI part there, and PackCLI for Fusion development. Uh, like pro devs or advanced makers, they can use PackCLI. Sorry for the typo over here, but yeah. So
So
let's dive. Mhm.
yeah, a short question for yeah, the Fusion development type of scenarios. Those are usually a pro dev that uses Visual Studio Code, for instance, and then uses the CLI to run a pipeline or something, or does it in Azure DevOps, for instance, or what kind of scenarios are there?
So everywhere where you can use PackCLI, that would work. So
Okay.
PackCLI is our pro dev or Fusion dev scenario. That way, all these things becomes much simpler.
Okay.
So let's jump into the demo part here. So let me share Visual Studio Code and start from here. You might have seen a demo of PackCLI by David Jenny and Karthik in the past. They beautifully explain how PackCLI works end to end. Here, I will just share about how to use this in the PackCLI, how to use PackCLI for the pipeline scenario. So uh, I have this tool in the VS Code, and it's preview version. You should use release version, but I have the preview one. Sometimes I get more commands on the preview version. And I'm connected to one of the auth profile here. And I am in a context Contoso host. This is the place where pipeline host is configured. So let's issue few commands and see how these things look like. So as you know, first we have to connect here with the right environment. So let's issue this command, and this will essentially list who is authenticated, and so you have the complete detail about the person who is logged in here and what auth profile is used. And then you would like to see, hey, how many different orgs I have here.
And the orgs are the environments, right? So whenever you have multiple environments, developer environments, test environments, production environments, you will see those all listed here.
Yep, in your tenant, everything that you have, they are listed here. It lists the name and IDs and URL, so there's no confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to like get into the host context from where you will be issuing the deployment. So in this case, let's go to Contoso host. So this is selected here, but we can also issue this command. So let me copy from here just to keep it simple. So this Contoso host is now selected, and now you can check as well that hey, who is like really connected here with the host environment. So cross checking is like uh, this will tell you okay, complete detail here. So we confirm that everything is fine. Now we can make progress on the pipeline side. So let's see what we have for the pipeline. Right, so there are two commands, list and deploy. One list the pipeline and another uh, start the pipeline deployment. So let's see like what we have on the list side. There are like additional information. So you can pass pipeline detail and you will get full information here. Similarly, we have deploy. Some more information has to be provided there. So let's look into what all we have got on the deployment side. So this is what that command parameter looks like. Solution name, what solution you want to deploy, what is your stage ID, what's the environment, the current version, new version of solution, and if you want to wait for that command. And I'll talk about stage ID, what exactly this stage ID is. So let's look into additional commands that we have here. So we talked about, hey, we have pack pipeline list that shares that, hey, how many of those pipelines I have in my host. So here you will see all the list of pipelines we have. In our demo here, we are going to use Awesome Pipeline, and this is the detail of the pipeline. So let's get some more detail about this pipeline. Right. So I have full detail about, hey, what's the stage ID for this pipeline? So there is one QA environment and there is one prod environment. And you see ID over here. So this command takes stage ID as a input. So let me quickly share what these IDs are. So for example, if I go to this awesome pipeline in my config app, you will see these QA and prod environment. So here, if I open the prod environment, you will see one ID here, stage ID. Start with pipe 3. This is what that ID you see over there.
So that's the GUID of the stage, right?
That's right, pipe 3, C1.
Yeah.
So already I have deployed this solution to QA. Let me try to deploy this in the production. And while that deployment is going on, I'll show you some additional information. So let me copy this command and try to deploy this to the prod. So again, I will repeat here, provide the solution name, what's the current version of solution, what's the new version you are going to have it over there, what's my stage ID, and what is that environment from where I'm going to pull that solution and deploy to the production. So this is, and wait, I have wait here that talks about, hey, something is going on. So I have now issued this command, and in the back end, it's creating necessary information to get ready for deployment. One of the activity that it does is validate, and after validation, it deploys to the right environment. So while this is going on, it might take, depending on the solution size and how system is loaded, this might take a minute to few minutes. So meanwhile, let me share what's going on here.
And
So
a little bit about the validation, by the way. Normally, when you run the pipeline inside of the UI, you have the validation, and you can also select the right connection and environment variable and that kind of thing. And that's not happening in the Apache CLI, right?
no, that also happens. I'm not showing that here, but you can provide those settings as part of the
Okay,
deployment. Yeah,
great.
so those things are possible. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, just checking.
Yep. So as you see here, a bunch of things going on here that, hey, validate is started, retrieving the artifact, validating the artifact, and validate completed successfully here. And then deployment is started, and it's getting that artifacts, and then it's deploying that artifact. And as you see here, the deployment is still going on. Uh, so yeah, it's a deployment is going on here. Meanwhile, let me show you the same thing as a, so this as a pipeline, pipeline administrator. We have access here that, hey, a deployment is going on. But you can also go to development environment and check this information. So the solution that I had was, I think it was event registration. So
Yeah.
let's go to the solution and go to the pipeline. And yeah, I think it just got deployed a few seconds ago. So if I go here, the deployment completed just now. And if you open here, you will see the detail when it started, when it completed. And it has one more information that I really want to show, that, hey, everything went fine. There are no failures and all. There is this support info as well. If there is any problem and you have to look into, hey, what's going on, and you have to contact Microsoft, this information can be very useful. Just copy here and it will go to clipboard, and that you can share. So that way, complete context is captured here. So yeah, like deployment just completed to the production. And if I go here in this pipeline, and you will see run history detail in a color coded way, and it's telling it succeeded. And if I go here, this pipeline is also telling that it completed. So yeah,
Great.
it's as simple.
Yeah, it's really simple.
So let me share the last one. All these commands and details are here that I talked about. So I also want to tell, hey, what are the different things we have in the summary form? So we have list, pipelines, and deploy available today. We also have future plan to take PaxCLI to the next level. So you will see capabilities in future like scheduling and approval support, validation as a standalone operations, and various settings capabilities, synchronizing it with the host DB, supporting the build task, creating pipeline environment, and pipeline CRUD operation. Pipeline CRUD is like some of these advanced operations might happen in future. We will optimize more for consuming or run scenarios more, and like provide those additional capabilities in the PaxCLI in the coming months and semesters.
Oh, great. It sounds already that you have a lot of functions already available. When we look at the demo, for instance, it's really nice how you can work with the pipelines and get all the details about it, deploy it, etc. But really looking forward to all the future plans. It looks really good.
Absolutely. Like we want to provide all the capabilities in the PaxCLI so that Fusion development is supported in a first class way.
Okay.
So yeah, call to action here, like automate your deployment with the pipelines. And for Fusion development scenario, try the pipelines commands in the PaxCLI. And there are additional resources that you can use to automate your ALM.
Okay, great. We'll make sure to share all the links in the video description. So with that, thanks a lot, Prabhat. I really liked the demo and all the information you shared. And with that, we will end our episode now. And let's see what we can
Thank you.
do with the next episode of the pipelines, because we are gonna have Prabhat back again at a future episode of the Low Code Revolution. So see you then.
Yeah, thanks for having me.